This is the Reviewing Network Live, a weekly stream of consciousness recording session where I sit back with you folks out there, talk about some of the big news stories from the past week, and some other things I found that might be of amusement to you out there. I think you might get a kick out of it. Now, these are more like audio podcasts and are much longer than my usual videos and are also, for the most part, unedited and will contain some foul language. So, if you're easily offended by that, I advise you to maybe step back a bit, maybe go somewhere else. But hey, if you're up to the challenge, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Thanks. And for the 26th time ever, we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Reviewing Network Live. It's Sunday night, the end of the weekend, and the start of a new week on the horizon. And I've already done the disclaimer, so if you're ready, let's go ahead and begin the conversation for this week. And as per usual, we begin our show by taking a look at the weekend box office, the top five. Not a busy new release weekend, but we do have two new releases in the top five. Two of the three movies that made it into the top five. One did not. We'll get to that one later on. But let's go ahead and get to the ones that have been in the top five for a while now. This one has been in the top five for a while now. Now entering its 10th week and probably bowing out this week with it coming out on Blu-ray on Tuesday. Migration. Eliminations Migration brought in $3 million this weekend, only dropping 21% from last week. Bringing its total gross after 10 weeks to $120.4 million. The worldwide gross is up to $268 million worldwide. And like I said, it's coming out on Blu-ray next week, so it'll probably be out of the top five next week, especially with Dune Part 2 coming out. I keep wanting to say Dune Chapter 2, but it's Dune Part 2. But yeah, that should be out of the top five next week. Let's move on to number 4, which is one of last week's new releases, and that is Madame Web, which did not have the best opening weekend last week and had a really bad drop-off this week. 61% drop-off. $6 million, $35.4 million domestically, $77.4 million worldwide. The budget on this was $80 million, and maybe it'll make its budget back in the long run, but Sony cannot be happy with this, and really, it's their own fault, man. I mean, we talked about why Madame Web bombed last week. The stuff I keep hearing about it afterwards, and some of the cheesy promotional tactics they did to promote this movie, it makes it even worse. Like the fact that they had to bring in Raven-Symoné to do a character from a show that's not a Sony-owned show, it's a Disney-owned show, to be part of the marketing campaign. Even if you look at this thing, Raven-Symoné does not look like she wants to be a part of any of this, and like it's bad. Like everything about this movie is just horrible. Like, I have to give Morbius more credit for what it was trying to accomplish. I mean, Morbius is a bad movie, but it knows how to entertain you in ways that are so ridiculously bad. But this is just abysmal on so many levels. This is definitely going to be up there with the worst movies of the year. It could very well surpass Argyle as the worst movie of the year. And the more I think about it, the more of those tacky promos that I keep hearing about, and I see that they did keep rearing its ugly head. I mean, this may be something that I might have to reconsider for the worst movie of the year, Madame Web, for sure. But Madame Web and Argyle definitely will be up there. But and we're going to talk more about Madame Web in a little bit, because there's someone online who has been dealing with some controversy because of them deciding not to review Madame Web and still making a video about it. But we'll talk about that in a little bit here. But let's get to the new releases this week. Number 3, which is a trailer I've seen a lot for the last couple months, Ordinary Angels. Now, this is one of those movies, this is one of those religious movies by Lionsgate and produced by the Gunn brothers. John Gunn, who has done some movies like this. He's done Do You Believe? The Case for Christ. This is from the same studio that did Jesus Revolution as well. I don't think this is the same team behind Jesus Revolution, because I think that's a different director altogether. But in this movie, you have Hilary Swank as a hairdresser. This takes place in 1994, Louisville, Connecticut, who rallies the community to help a widowed father save the life of his critically ill young daughter after Louisville was hit with a major snowstorm following the 1994 North American cold wave. And Alan Ritchson, who was in Jack Reacher and in Blue Mountain State, plays the father in this. And the trailers for it didn't look too bad, honestly, but these movies are very, very mixed for me. Like, sometimes you'll get a good one, like an American underdog, the one about Kurt Warner, but then you get stuff like Mom's Night Out, or I Can Only Imagine, like those type of movies. Like, sometimes they work, sometimes not so much. And this one didn't look too bad for me. I mean, this one looks kind of generic. I mean, it looks like a story that is very much a story we've seen done to death so many times. But unlike a lot of Oscar bait movies that try to have a story like this one didn't look that bad to me. I think they know that none of these movies are going to go up for Academy Awards in the future. I mean, they're just made to be entertaining movies for the Lifetime audience. And from what I've seen from the little bits and pieces of them, I'd rather have the Lifetime audience watch these movies than actually watch the Lifetime original movies that they have now, because the Lifetime original movies are just nothing but a joke now. The Hallmark Channel movies as well. Like, I don't understand the appeal of them, but hey, there's an audience for them somewhere, so what do I know? But $6.5 million. This thing has a budget of $12 to $13 million, which isn't bad per se. And for a movie that wasn't really marketed as much as it probably should have been, like, I saw more commercials for Drive Away Dolls, which we'll get to that one in just a little bit, but that didn't do well. This one did pretty well, so hey, it's got a loyal audience to it, so more power to them. And speaking of movies that did not have any promotions but continued to do well, Crunchyroll has a new movie out in theaters this weekend, so let's go to the number 2 movie, and that is Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba to the Hashira Training. As you can tell, I'm not very good at that, so I'm just reading what it says on here. But yeah, this is the latest Crunchyroll movie released through Sony. And following the events of Swordsmith Village, Tanjiro Kamado undergoes a rigorous training with the stone Hashira, Gaomi Hajime, in his quest to become a Hashira, and as the Demon King Muzu Kibutsuji and the 3 remaining Kazuki members, Akaza, Dama, and Kokushibo, start their search for Nezuko and the Ubushika family. Good lord, like, you could tell that I'm not very good. I'm not very good with the translations here, is with the pronunciations of these words here. So yeah, I don't know if I'm saying that right. If I am, I guess I need. If I'm not, I'm sorry. But I know nothing about Demon Slayer, honestly, to really know about this anime in particular. I don't really watch a whole lot of anime per se. But again, this is one of those ones where no real audience, no real marketing for this movie in terms of, like, you know, on television or in movies in any way, shape, or form. But like, the audience for this movie, once again, coming through Crunchyroll does a very good job of getting this out to their audiences through social media, and not really having to go through the typical you know way of releasing movies where you have to have promotions for them all over television and in movie theaters. But $11.6 million in just under 2,000 theaters. The worldwide gross for this is $28.2 million. So $28 million for a movie that did not really have a massive marketing campaign, at least here. It's pretty good on them. They do a pretty good job of handling that. And more than likely it's going to be front-loaded, so this will probably be out of the top 5 next week if the other Crunchyroll movies are any consideration. But like I said, I don't know too much about these, so I can't really say for certain whether or not... And I can't really say anything about these in particular. I've always wanted to try to go into one of these animes at one point, but I've just never really had the time to do it. But there you go, man. Demon Slayer hanging in there, premiering there at number 2. Let's go ahead and move on to the number 1 movie, which was the number 1 movie last week, and that is, of course, Bob Marley, One Love. Brought in $13.5 million this week, dropping 52% from last week. $71.2 million. I mean, this thing made is now over $120 million worldwide at the box office. The budget on this movie is, I believe, $70 million. So yeah, they're set from this point on. I mean, this is probably its last weekend in the top 5, of course, because in the number 1 spot, I should say, not the top 5, because Dune Part 2. I did it again. Dune Part 2 comes out next week, and I just did a video on talking about the movies over on the main channel, talking about the MPAA rating system because of this particular film. Sorry about that, I had to take that phone call. But I did a video on the other channel talking about the MPAA rating system and how I felt like there's a problem with it. It mostly stemmed from this getting a PG-13 rating. But then I thought about it more and more, and it's just like, the MPAA rating, like, when you really think about it, the PG-13, and the R are the only real ratings we really use. And the G and the NC-17 have just been completely abandoned altogether. Nobody makes movies for theaters with the G rating. The NC-17 rating is too poisonous to go with the movies that it was supposed to be intended to do, like the more adult movies. Like, of course, thanks to Showgirls, but nobody really uses them anymore. And in that video, I talk about maybe getting rid of the G and NC-17 ratings altogether and just having the PG, PG-13, and R rating, because you could still release movies unrated, especially on streaming, and it just feels really pointless to have the G and NC-17 rating if they're not going to use them. And I also kind of criticize them, the MPAA, for thinking that maybe that they don't watch the movies they're supposed to be watching, because it makes too much sense why they wouldn't watch them, because there are movies that are PG that could easily be rated G when you really think about it. But that's over on the other channel. If you want to go check that out, I'll have a link to it in the description below. But Bob Marley One Love has grossed $120 million worldwide over 2 weeks. Big success for Paramount. And other studios are taking notice, as that we'll talk about one of the news stories we have coming up. But like I said, next week it's all about Dune Part 2. How's that going to do? The early word of mouth on it is really, really good. The reviews for it came out from the premiere. They are highly positive, so I think it's close to about 97% on Rotten Tomatoes, which really isn't saying much, but it definitely looks like it's going to be a massive improvement over the first Dune movie, which I'm definitely looking forward to, because I like the first Dune. I didn't love it like everybody else did. I was mostly concerned about the fact that the movie was coming without an idea if it was going to have a sequel or not. And I thought that some of the visuals looked great. I thought the acting was okay. The storytelling wasn't really that strong either. So I'm definitely looking forward to see what they do with the second film. I'm getting my hopes up very high for this one. Can't wait to check this out next week. So Dune Part 2 comes out next week. And before we head out of the top 5, we might as well talk about the last movie I wanted to talk about, Drive-Away Dolls, which sadly did not perform at the box office and kind of flopped hard. I don't even think hard, but it brought in $2.4 million. You had a couple of commercials on TV leading up to the premiere of it, but it didn't help that the movie didn't open in many theaters. I was really looking forward to checking this one out, because it's a new Coen Brothers movie. It's directed by, actually, it's made by one Coen, Ethan Coen, and written by his wife. And you have Margaret Qualley from The Nice Guys and Geraldine Viswanathan from Blockers and Miracle Workers, playing two lesbian friends on a road trip who find themselves on the run from mobsters with a briefcase that the mobsters are after. You also have Beanie Feldstein, Coleman Domingo, Pedro Pascal, Bill Kemp, Matt Damon. This looked like a great movie, man. I really wanted to see this movie. I thought it looked like it could be a fun film from the trailers I saw from it. Miley Cyrus has an uncredited cameo that looks like it's pretty fun. You see a little bit from it in the trailer, but unfortunately, the movie didn't get a wide release. Like, Lisa Frankenstein got a 3,000 theater release and barely did anything with it. And this one barely got a 2,000 theater release, and it wasn't playing anywhere. Like, I don't understand why Focus Features didn't put the money to put this in theaters if they really believed in it. But unfortunately, it's not playing around here, so I guess I'll have to wait till it comes out on streaming or on Blu-ray. I'm definitely looking forward to checking it out, though. But that's the other big new release. Tenet's not even in this list on Box Office Mojo that I always look at. Les Miserables got a re-release apparently this week, which, heaven forbid, we want to see that in theaters again. But $337,000 for that, which is not bad per se. I didn't even know Amelie was in theaters again. I mean, I just talked about Amelie on Time About the Movies not too long ago, and it got a re-release last week, and I didn't know that. So it's weird that those re-releases I've never heard of got mentioned in this list, but not Tenet. So I don't know how Tenet did, but it probably didn't do well if they're not even putting the numbers in there. But so anyway, that is the weekend box office. So let's go ahead and dive into the news of the week, which we do have a significant amount of news stories to talk about. So there was a significant amount of news stories that came out this week. Some little stories here and there. I could talk about what's been going on with Coyote versus ACME at Warner Brothers, because Warner Brothers had their big earnings call on Friday that everyone was looking at to see whether or not David Zaslav did what he said he was going to do and delete the film. And he probably did. And it's like, the hope is now that somebody out there will leak the movie because it looks like Warner Brothers is just going to be David Zaslav is going to be so petty about this movie. It's clear that this guy does not like Warner Brothers animation at all, or the Looney Tunes in general, because it's incredible that he's going to these petty levels when people are willing to give him the money that he wants to. This for the budget that this movie was for, $70 to $80 million. They're willing to pay money for him, and he's just refusing because I don't want this movie out there because it's for whatever stupid reason it is. It's just like, it's funny when the news broke a couple weeks ago that it literally sounds like that Judge Doom from Who Framed Roger Rabbit came back to life, and he's David Zaslav, like he's a tune underneath that, because there's no reason why this guy should be so petty and so obnoxious with the way he's running his company right now, and everyone's taking notice of it. And then this guy has the balls to come out during this earnings call and talk about how his company is about pure storytelling. It's about, pure storytelling, a bold, pure storytelling, mom. And I shit you not, this is the literal quote that he said. Like, come on, get out of there. This pop-up just came up as I was literally about to say it. Like, this is literally what he had to say. When we launched this company almost 2 years ago, we made it clear we believe in this business. We're a pure storytelling company, and we're going to bring the best people in front of and behind the camera back to Warner Brothers. A pure storytelling company. Is that why you literally dropped $115 million worth of finished products for tax write-offs? Is that why you told the people behind Batgirl, we're going to shelve your movie, it's never going to put out? Scoob's never going to get put out. Coyote vs. Acme's never going to get put out. Salem's Lot is a movie that's been in development at Warner Brothers and apparently is finished, and nobody has said anything about that, so that's probably gone. The director of Parasite has a movie at Warner Brothers. They had a trailer for it come out a couple years ago. That's probably not going to come out now. I mean, he's a snake oil salesman. Like, he's a con man. Like, this guy had the nerve to say that I saw The Flash 3 times, and you can't even get through Coyote vs. Acme one time? One fucking time? Like, I don't get it, man. Like, I really don't know what he's got, so he could still keep his job, because he should have had his job canned by him at this point. It's just like, I don't know who else he's got to piss off for somebody to say, you gotta go, but evidently that's not going to happen anytime soon, and so we're just waiting for the inevitable. But I'm getting the feeling that this thing's going to get, Coyote vs. Acme will get leaked out before David Zaslav even has the balls to even consider putting it out, because he's just going to keep it in there until it's because of his petty ego. Plain and simple. And I know that it's not really a major news story. That's not really one of the major news stories I wanted to cover, but that was something that happened on Friday that just, I had to bring this up. But let's get to some of the news stories that I did have planned to talk about, starting with the Beatles. So with Bob Marley One Love being the success that it is right now, other studios are taking notice that it's time to get back on the musical biopic bandwagon. And so Sony has gotten the film rights to do a movie about the Beatles. I'm sorry, not a movie. 4 movies. This was very interesting that came out this week. I'm looking at the story right now from the Hollywood Reporter. So Sam Mendes, who gave us American Beauty, Road to Perdition, 1917, great director, has been announced to be teamed up with Sony Pictures Entertainment for The Beatles, which will be 4 theatrical films about the British supergroup, each from the perspective of a different band member. The project comes more than 50 years after the Beatles broke up and 40 years after the death of John Lennon, which will see Apple Corps, the company founded by the band's members, and the Beatles offer up each of the Fab Four's 4 life stories and music rights for a scripted film. Mendes will direct the 4 theatrical feature films to recapture the story of the greatest band in history, and they will all meet together in the Beatles' equivalent of the Avengers. I'm making that up, of course, but how can you not think that? A lot of people were already making the joke because of that. Music films have proven to be resilient at the box office. Paramount's Bob Marley One Love overperformed last week, while Taylor Swift's $15 million concert film The Eras Tour outgrossed a number of Hollywood tentpoles with $261 million globally last year. A number of other music films are in the works, with Antoine Fuqua currently filming the Michael Jackson biopic, Michael, for Lionsgate. Yeah, remember when everyone said that musicals were dead, were box office poison if you tried to sell them as one? Apparently that's not the case, because, Bob Marley One Love, Wonka, Mean Girls, The Eras Tour. Yeah, where's the excuses now? But Sony will finance and distribute the movie series worldwide in theaters in 2027. The schedule for the rollout of the films has yet to be announced. Anything else of noteworthiness here? I'll talk about this. The Beatles project has been long in development at Sony, where Tom Rothman, the head of the studio, and Elizabeth Gabler helped spearhead the project. The goal is telling the story of the legendary rock band as a whole, leading up to their long-brewing 1970 breakup, but from the view of each band member. And the series will be done with the full cooperation of the Beatles and Apple Company. We intend this to be a uniquely thrilling and epic cinematic experience. 4 films tell from 4 different perspectives, which tell a single story about the most celebrated band of all time, says Harrison's statement. I'm very interested to see how this pans out. This is not the first time they've had a Beatles project that they've tried to get off the ground. Of course, Disney and Robert Zemeckis were going to do Yellow Submarine as in the same style as Robert Zemeckis' The Polar Express and A Christmas Carol, but that one did not pan out very well because of the box office overall. And I mean, it would have been interesting to see what they would have done with it, but I'm definitely very curious to see how this one's going to pan out. It's something unusual, something very unique. 4 films, each centering around one member of the Beatles. It's a very interesting idea. And honestly, I've talked about it several times already, but they should be doing this with Michael Jackson. Like, this should be more than... Michael Jackson story needs to be more than one movie. It needs to be like a 3-part film series. You do one film where you chronicle Jackson growing up and as a young kid and becoming the superstar that he would eventually become. Then you do a movie with the superstar era in the 80s and early 90s, and then you do his final the downfall and the sun and the re-uppance again in the 3rd film. To try to condense all that down into one movie is crazy to think about. And as great of a director that Antoine Fuqua can be, I think it's going to be really, really hard to make this just one movie with Michael Jackson. But then again, the Beatles one is also going to be tough to do. Like, you're going to tell 4 different stories, basically the same stories through 4 different perspectives. And I'm very curious to see how it pans out. I have my concerns, but I mean, Sam Mendes is a great director, man. I mean, he's a really good director. The only real concern I have for it was the same thing I have with a lot of other, and with a lot of other musical biopics, and it's that the people behind it know the Beatles too well, and I'm afraid there's that feeling in the back of my head that they're going to play it too safe. I mean, it's going to be too safe. It's probably going to be only there to be marketable and not really tell a story, kind of like with Bob Marley. But then again, Bob Marley's making the money right now, and I guess that's just the way you have to do it now. It's just really, like, I don't know. It's a tough thing to really look at right now. I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how this pans out, but yeah, I always have those feelings in the back of my head about what this could be. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what they do with it, though. It looks like it could be something very interesting. But Sony is also in the news for something else they did, and it's going to be... This is pretty interesting what they're doing right here. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next story. On the same day, the Beatles story came out. This came out of nowhere, and it's just like, oh, wow, this is very, very interesting what's going on here. But Sony Pictures Entertainment is buying out Disney's home entertainment department pretty much. I mean, Disney has struck a deal with Sony to take over its DVD and Blu-ray disc business. And I have the story right here. This comes from Variety. The story starts off with Disney is outsourcing a big piece of its home entertainment division to Sony Pictures Entertainment, which will manufacture, distribute, and market the Mouse House's DVDs and Blu-ray discs and other physical media. As part of the deal, Sony will market, sell, and distribute all Disney's new releases and catalog titles on physical media to consumers through retailers and distributors in the US and Canada. Disney will continue to maintain its own digital media like premium video on demand. I mean, that makes sense. It's interesting Sony doesn't have a streaming service either. Like everybody else has got one, like Paramount has one, and Universal has one, Warner Brothers has one, Disney has one. Sony has not, which is very, very interesting when you think about it. But back to the story. It's unclear if this will result in layoffs at Disney. However, the studio is expected to conduct an internal assessment across all business functions that support physical media amid the transition to Sony, according to sources familiar with the agreement. According to Disney, the licensing model allows the studios to continue to offer films and TV shows to physical retailers and to respond to consumer demand more efficiently. The company says the shift is consistent with strategies it's implemented company-wide, as well as transitions into other markets. Whatever the reasoning, physical disc sales have long been in decline, and they show no signs of rebounding amid the industry's streaming boom. Revenues for physical media in the U.S. dropped 28% to $754 million in the first half of 2024, compared to $1.5 billion in the prior year, according to data from trade associates DEG, the Digital Entertainment Group. It's projected that 2024 will be the first year revenue drops below $1 billion. As a result, Best Buy discontinued sales of DVDs and Blu-ray discs in the stores and online in early 2024. This move follows Netflix's decision last summer to shutter DVDs by mail service. Walmart, Amazon, and Redbox are among the select major retailers to sell copies of Avatar: The Way of Water, Avengers, and other Disney blockbusters. So basically, what is happening here is that Disney and Sony's basically going to start releasing Disney movies, kind of in the same way that Universal has been releasing Warner Brothers movies for the last couple of years through studio distribution service. I mean, Universal and Warner Brothers release movies through the same company, which, because of that, I think they should consider putting out an actual Barbie Oppenheimer double feature set, because, I mean, it's basically the same companies putting them out. But this is very interesting because not too long ago, Disney actually made another deal with Mill Creek Entertainment. This actually was from last year. And I've got the story right here. Let me see if I can get the article to come up here. So yeah, this was from January of 2023. Mill Creek Entertainment, a distributor and wholesaler of the world's largest in-stock selection of music, movies, and video games, electronics, you name it, today announced it was signing a home entertainment licensing agreement with the Walt Disney Company. In the multi-year agreement, Distribution Solutions will distribute hundreds of select physical, live-action film and television properties from ABC Signature, 20th Television, Hollywood Pictures, Touchstone Pictures, 20th Century Studios content library. So I don't know if that deal is still going on. I guess it is, because it literally says right there, it's for their film and TV shows from ABC, 20th Century, Hollywood Pictures, Touchstone Pictures, 20th Century Fox. I think that's where a lot of those releases are going to come from. So I guess maybe the Sony deal is going to account for like newer releases going forward, and even maybe some catalog titles from like the Disney vaults. But this is still a pretty big deal, and it's interesting because, of course, Sony made the deal with Disney for the recent set of Marvel Studios Spider-Man movies. That's why we have Spider-Man in the MCU at this point. So now we can actually have a physical collection of all the Spider-Man movies in one, not just the MCU ones, but the Sony ones as well, which I guess really we could have done that anyway, because all of them were released by Sony. But it does make me wonder if that Mill Creek Disney deal is still going forward, or is this just the new thing that they're doing now, and Mill Creek's not even involved anymore. I went to another article by the Digital Bits, who first broke the story, and he makes some good points about where this goes from here. The hope for physical media consumers going forward is that if Disney does get more efficient and profitable releasing discs via this arrangement, they might actually start releasing more of them. As cinephiles are well aware, Disney is currently sitting on a vault that's chock full of great live-action films from the classic Disney, 20th Century, Hollywood Pictures, and Touchstone libraries. In fact, there are at least 20 classic Fox catalog titles that we've confirmed have recent 4K remasters, and I'm guessing that includes The Abyss, Aliens, and True Lies, which come out next month, I should say, that Disney is doing absolutely nothing with. They aren't going to streaming or digital, they aren't appearing on Disney+, and they certainly aren't being released on Blu-ray or physical 4K Ultra HD. This is at a time when other major studios are not only digging deep into the film libraries for Blu-rays and 4K Ultra HD releases, they are also licensing many very deep catalogs to boutique labels like Shout Factory, Arrow, Kino Lorber, Indicator, Powerhouse, and more. An arrangement that has generated good profits for those other studios, even as production costs increase and vendor retail options shrink. One way the indie studios particularly are working to adjust to the new climate is by creating their own online stores and thereby selling discs to fans and consumers directly. So I think this could be a very good thing. Like, this isn't the first time this is being done. Like I said, Universal and Warner Brothers have done this for years, and Paramount and Warner Brothers actually merged together to release movies. Warner Brothers had catalog titles from Paramount back in over 10 years ago, and that was very interesting to see. Like, you can actually get stuff like, Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Big Top Pee-wee, like these movies that you wouldn't think they would ever come together, now can come together. So I think this could actually be something very interesting. And like I said, I'm really curious to see how Mill Creek, are they still working on that? Like, is Mill Creek still going to be involved in putting out those Disney titles like they were last year? Unfortunately, there was also some bad news to this, because of this arrangement, Disney Movie Club is officially shutting down. And, they confirmed it on their website, and I have the picture right here. After 23 magical years, it's time to say goodbye. We have made the difficult decision to close the Disney Movie Club We will miss the opportunity to serve cherished Disney fans like you. The last day is to order is May 20th, 2024. That sucks, because I know some people do like the Disney Movie Club. I've actually gotten some Disney Movie Club exclusive stuff. I'm not a member of the club. I've been wanting to try to do it for a while now, but I've been wanting to get them on. I've been getting my copies up from the Disney Movie Club on eBay and through Half Price Books, because they usually come in there a good majority of the time, and sometimes they usually have some really good slipcovers to them. But yeah, that sucks to know that the Disney Movie Club unfortunately has to go with this, because it's been around for so long. It's kind of like when Columbia House went down. The great thing, back in the day, you used to get like 5 videos for 99 cents or something like that, or something around that. 5 CDs for 99 cents. But unfortunately, that went away. But we're kind of in this. It's just showing that. See, I don't want to say physical media is completely dead. I still would rather prefer having a physical copy of a movie than watching it on streaming, because I still see streaming as more of a necessity more than a need. It's something that really is not. Is it? I always keep thinking I'm pronouncing this wrong, saying this wrong. But streaming is not really a necessity. It's more of bottom line, what I'm trying to say is that I don't think streaming is really the way to go here. I can't remember what I wanted to say, but streaming is not the way to go, and I would still rather have a physical copy of a movie than watch it on streaming. I mean, streaming is also nice to have, but they need to change the way they need to make the way you watch these movies consistent. Like, you can't just watch a movie on streaming and always getting digital. There's digital errors. There's too many markings coming up where you can't watch the movie the way it was meant to be seen, or a TV show the way it was meant to be seen. And it's just you have to figure out how to do. You need to figure out a way to make streaming perfectly usable. You have to make it a way to. You have to find a way to make it. You have to find a way to make it work 100%. It just can't be something that's just it just is the video keeps getting screwed up, or the sound gets screwed up. That's one of the biggest problems with streaming now, is that there's no perfect formula for getting that work unless you spend a ton of money when you don't really have that much money to do it. So until that day comes, I would still rather take a physical copy of a movie or TV show than a streaming copy any day of the week. But I am definitely looking forward to seeing what Disney and Sony do with this. Hopefully, we'll get to see some very cool combinations coming up very soon. And I'm definitely looking forward to see what they do with it. I'm really excited to see where it goes from there. So that was one of those stories that broke. Let's move on to the next story we have. So 2 weeks ago, we talked about the new Jurassic World movie, and just after the news broke, they had already gotten a director attached to it, which was David Leitch, who was directing Universal's Fall Guy movie, and it's been seen as the dominant young action director right now. He was on the project, and then he wasn't. Literally the same week he got hired, he left the project due to creative differences, and so Universal had to scramble because they'd already set a July 2025 release date. So this thing is coming sooner rather than later. And so this week they finally found a director, and they found one in Gareth Edwards. This is from the Hollywood Reporter, and it says that Gareth Edwards is in talks to direct Universal's latest installment of the Jurassic World franchise, to step into the shoes that were worn, if ever so briefly, by Bullet Train filmmaker David Leitch. Leitch, who directed the studio's upcoming Fall Guy movie, was in talks in early February to helm the project, but just days later, the two sides parted ways. It became clear to Leitch that his creative input would be minimal due to the project's fast-track status, and the producers wanted to wield a stronger hand after the experiences of Jurassic World Dominion. This would also help minimize the participation of his production partner and wife, Kelly McCormick. The new Jurassic already sent several drafts in, with a script written by David Coep. Gareth Edwards knows his way around creature features thanks to his breakout indie Monsters and subsequent studio debut Godzilla, which launched Legendary's MonsterVerse a decade ago. He's already weathered one tumultuous production thanks to his experience on Rogue One, and he's a special effects whiz good at creating with budgets and demonstrating more recently with The Creator, which was made with $80 million, though it cost much more. So overall, I think it's a good choice for a director. I think Gareth Edwards is a solid director overall, but The Creator, as much as I like that movie, I don't think it was a great movie. I thought it was just okay. I thought it could have been a whole lot better, but I will admire it for the visual effects, because they did a good job of making that look as big budgeted as it really isn't, because it's a lower budgeted movie, but it looks like something much higher than that. So if he could do that with Jurassic Park, I think this could be something very interesting to see how they work. it's also going to depend on if the story's good. I'm really curious what they're going to do with it. I hope it's not the same thing all over again like we got with the last couple of movies. I mean, do something new with Jurassic World with it. I mean, do something new and different. Hopefully they'll do it, but quick story on that one here. So that's the story there. Gareth Edwards, right now going to direct Jurassic World, still going to direct it as far as I know, but you never know with the last guy who directed it. But with that said, let's move on to the next story. So one of the most popular mangas of all time, Naruto, is finally going to the big screen. As again, the Hollywood Reporter reported that Destin Daniel Cretton, who directed Shang Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, he was also going to do the new Avengers movie, but dropped out, has been tapped to direct the film. Naruto, one of the most popular mangas of all time, is headed to the big screen. Destin Daniel Cretton, who co-wrote and directed the Marvel Studios movie Shang Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, has been tapped to pen and helm a live-action adaptation of the title for Lionsgate. Cretton will also produce, alongside Jinyan Munford through his company Hasako. The duo will join Avi Arad and MEU of Arad Productions, who are behind the studio's upcoming video game adaptation Borderlands, and Jeremy Latcham, who did Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Amongst Thieves. Created by Masashi Kishimoto, Naruto was a coming-of-age story focusing on a young and enthusiastic ninja named Naruto Uzumaki, who wants to grow up to be the leader of his ninja village, but also happens to be the spirit of a nine-tailed demon fox inside of him. The story was serialized in Japanese popular weekly Shonen Jumps from 1999 to 2014, tracking the characters' coming-of-age, friendships, and many superpowered ninja battles. In the time, it's become one of the most popular intellectual properties, with over 250 million copies of the collective volumes sold in more than 60 countries and territories. It's had animated series that ran for years on Cartoon Network, Disney XD, Adult Swim, and other networks. It's been adapted into video game form and continues to be a merchandising juggernaut. Naruto has essentially been building hardcore fans around the world for 25 years. Cretton has Kishimoto's blessing, something bestowed upon him after a visit to Tokyo. When I heard of Destin's attachment, it happened to be right after watching a blockbuster action film of his, and I thought he would be the perfect director for Naruto, said Kishimoto in a statement. After enjoying his other films and understanding that his forte is in creating solid dramas about people, I became convinced that there's no other director for Naruto. In actually meeting Destin, I also found him to be an open-minded director who was willing to embrace my input and felt strongly that we were able to cooperate together in the production process. The adaptation has been in development with Lionsgate since late 2015, and Cretton's board makes a significant leap forward into getting it onto the big screen. And Naruto's one of those ones that I've heard about it. I've seen a lot of stuff from Naruto, but I've actually never seen the manga before, so I don't know too much about any of the characters or anything like that, but I do know certain things from the show, from the little bits and pieces I've seen from it, but this could be something that could be very interesting to see how it pans out. Lionsgate, they had the Borderlands trailer come out this week, which I thought looked fun, even though I was somebody that's coming to that relatively new. I didn't know too much about Borderlands. Like, some people really didn't like it, but I thought it looked good. But it seems like Naruto is one of those ones where it should be something that should have been on the big screen by this point. It's kind of like with Doraemon too. Like, you see those characters there, and you feel like those are characters that should be on the big screen in some movie, shape, or form. Like, it really should be something like why is it taking them so long to do that? But it could be very interesting to see how this one pans out. I like this director a lot. He did Just Mercy with Michael B. Jordan and Brie Larson a couple of years ago, which was actually really good. And he also produced American Born Chinese, which is a great show on Disney Plus last year. So I think he might be the perfect guy to do this. I don't know much about the source material to really say how I feel about about what this would be like in live action form, but I do feel like it's something that it should be done in live action form, and I think this might be the best guy to get to do that. So again, not much more to say about that one. I hope it looks pretty good. I mean, we've had some good successes so far with live action adaptations of mangas. We just had One Piece on Netflix, and then some that were not so good. Avatar: The Last Airbender, which we'll get to that in just a second. But I'm definitely looking forward to see how this one pans out. So let's go ahead and continue into story time. So, of course, Madame Web is still on the minds of a lot of people, especially online, social media, and there's a lot to talk about it, and none of it is very good. But there was one controversy in particular from somebody who I've talked about before, who was one of my major influences, establishing this website and this channel altogether, and that is Chris Stuckmann. And he had and of course, I know you know what I'm going to talk about here: the controversy in quotes of him deciding not to review Madame Web. He made a video talking about, it starts off looking like it's going to be a review for Madame Web. It literally has the thumbnail that he usually has, where he has the poster and he's looking at the movie in particular. You think it's going to be one of those movie reviews, and the title of it is "I Have to Talk About This." And in the video, he talks about how he's going to talk about not how bad the movie Madame Web is, because he says in the video that there are other places you can go to where they'll give you what you want. A complete thrashing of one of the worst movies of the year, which, more power to him. That's where you should go. I mean, hell, if you really want to see a bad review, I'll promote my video again from last week. Go watch that over on the other channel. But, so he puts this video out here on, talking about, like, he starts off saying that I saw the movie, and instead of doing a review for it, I'm going to talk about the behind-the-scenes, basically saying I'm going to talk about the behind-the-scenes stuff here. And I've got the video right here, so let's go ahead and play a little bit of it right here so you can get a good idea of what we're talking about here.
Tell you that this is, and I thought to myself, probably not going to do a video for this one based off of what I've heard, since I do try to keep it mostly about film celebration on this channel. Having seen the film, I'm going to tell you that this is not a movie review of me.
There's something interesting that pops up right from the beginning there is he's talking about how his channel is now a place for film celebration, which, I mean, we all change our channels throughout the course of the years to appease to the, the YouTube algorithm, all that type of stuff. And I think I found that very interesting because he's had reviews on there talking about is a long collection of his older reviews from when he was being, mostly negative and positive are definitely still available on that channel. So the fact that now he's talking about, now this is a place where you can celebrate film on here, I find that kind of interesting, but I just thought that was interesting to bring up there. So let's continue on.
Madame Web, I am not about bashing filmmakers, artists. I know how hard it is to make a movie. I do not know how hard it is to make a movie under the studio system. I was able to make an indie film without a giant corporation breathing down my neck, which is not the privilege that S.J. Clarkson had when she directed Madame Web under Sony, which I can only imagine was monumentally difficult.
So, it's weird. The whole video talks about how he's not going to criticize the movie, but he's going to criticize the people that put the movie together, the studio system that he's trying not to offend, because he's a director now. He works in Hollywood, and it's weird. It's like you're trying to have your cup of tea, but also you want to do something different too, and you can't really balance it both at the same time. Like, Chris Stuckmann can be a very smart guy. I've read a lot of his stuff. I've seen a lot of his videos. I think he is a very smart guy and knows what he's doing. But with a video like this, it's really hard for me to decide whether or not that he made the right call on this, because, like I said, it feels like he's trying to have his cake and eat it too. Like, he's trying to have to still do what he's been doing for years, while also trying to appease the Hollywood so he could eventually move up in the world. I mean, that's just my first thinking for watching this video for the first time. But let's continue on.
This is not going to be a video about Madame Web and telling you whether or not you should see Madame Web. There are plenty of people on this platform, as well as a website dedicated to aggregating reviews and giving it a number that's going to inform you of that, and you can choose to listen to those voices if you want.
And again, he's not wrong on that.
What I am compelled to make a video about is something that I heard pretty much every writer, some directors, and most actors bashing last year, and that is movie studios.
Yeah, so the video, basically, he's talking about the studio system. The one he's talking about, it basically bashing Sony's Spider-Man, non-Spider-Man universe, which includes Venom, Let There Be Carnage, Madame Web, Morbius, and the upcoming Kraven the Hunter. And he just goes on talking about that. And, this isn't the first time somebody's done a video like this and has garnered some controversy because of it. I mean, go back to 2016 when there was a new Ghostbusters movie featuring an all-female cast that everybody on the internet clearly was excited for, as they completely threw everything at the wall and just completely bashed that in general. And James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd, decided he was not going to review the film. And I've got that video here too. Ghostbusters 2016, no review, I refuse.
The actual movie is better than the trailer. Maybe it's good. It's a possibility. I know I'm biased. Ghostbusters is something that a lot of us grew up with. and we wanted to see the original cast back together for one last time while they were still alive, and then maybe introduce a new younger cast, work them in, win us over, and then pass it on for a new generation.
Which essentially has just happened with Ghostbusters Afterlife. But, it's not, he took a lot of flack for saying that he wasn't going to review the new Ghostbusters movie at that time, which I've seen that movie, Ghostbusters 2016. It's not as bad as people make it out to be. Far from it. I mean, it's not Ghostbusters or Ghostbusters 2 good, but it's Paul Feig. And Paul Feig overall is a very solid director. I've liked a lot of his movies, some of them not so much. He's a good director, and, I thought he did the best job he could have with Ghostbusters 2016. I don't think it's a great film. I think it's definitely the weaker of the Ghostbusters movies, but it's still an enjoyable film. But I've even done something like this too with Zack Snyder's Justice League. When they announced that they were going to do that, I did a video back when that came out that basically I've said that I refused to review this movie because I didn't like the fact that it was basically being made because people on Twitter were talking about it as it was an actual thing. And then all of a sudden everybody was just like, people want this. People within the cast of Justice League were just like, no, people want this. They want this now. Even though we didn't realize until later on that Warner Brothers was basically lying to everybody when they said that this was going to be something that people wanted, when it clearly was not. And I've got a little bit of that video there. I'll show you that in just a second. I would say watching this again, I sounded like I'm like, this is like an emotional moment for me. I'm listening to this and just like, what were you doing back there, man? I'm talking to myself like back then, but here's a little bit of that clip that video I was talking about.
And I'm going to tell you why. I thought about what I wanted to say about this in this video, about why I'm not going to review the film. And
yeah, I don't know what was going on back then. I don't know why in this video I sound like I'm like tearing up about this. Like, this is so emotionally tragic for me that I'm not going to do this. But I talk about in this video about, like, I don't like the fact that this thing came around without anybody really thinking about it until someone on Twitter started putting up the thing, and then everybody at Warner Brothers started to say, you know what, people want this, and then they completely lied to you. People forget that when Zack Snyder was working on Justice League, that his daughter had died during the production of that, so that's why he stepped away. It wasn't because Warner Brothers wanted them out after Batman v Superman, and that's why they got Joss Whedon for it. I actually like the Joss Whedon cut. It's not a good movie, but it's certainly a lot better than Batman v Superman was. Like, Batman v Superman is one of those ones where it's just like, it just felt like a film that was just like trying to be this. It was one of the worst movies of the last decade. It was this generation's Phantom Menace. It's one that's just like, so much of that movie is so wrong, and it starts off with Zack Snyder. I mean, it's clear that Zack Snyder isn't a fan of Superman, so why are you going to give him Man of Steel to do that movie when he's not a Superman fan and clearly is a Batman fan? Because he's trying to make Superman like Batman, and that's two polar opposites altogether. And I talk about it in this video here. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'll put a link to that down below, as well as the other videos I've talked about. But the bottom line is that this is not the first time that a person online has said that I'm not going to review something and then has had a backlash to it. I don't know if I had a backlash to my video, which probably not, but you get kind of the idea here. But I don't blame Chris Stuckmann for making the video talking about this, like talking about the studio system, and especially the way that Sony has been handling Spider-Man under the under their own hands. But my thing is the thing I was talking about earlier. It's the fact that he decided that this video was a good idea in general. Like, people, when they clicked on this video, they were expecting to see a typical Chris Stuckmann movie review, and they want to see what he has to say about this movie that is highly criticized, has no real support behind it, even from the people who made the movie. Like, it's funny how Dakota Johnson is more of a critic of her own movie than Chris Stuckmann is supposed to be as a film critic, even though I don't think he really describes himself as a film critic anymore, as more of a director. Which another person I got a lot of influence from, John Flickinger, the Flick Pick, talked about on his recent show, and I've got that video right here, so let's go ahead and take a listen to this.
Controversy. If you're talking about the controversy of making a video with the thumbnail of Madame Web on it, and then you don't really review the movie or talk about the movie, but then you kind of complain about the state of criticism towards movies and bad movies overall, but you don't give any real criticisms towards the movie that you're talking about. I didn't understand the point of it. but if that's the controversy you're talking about, isn't that funny? That's controversy nowadays on the internet. Some guy made a video that relates to movies, and
I mean, he basically makes the point there that the video seemed kind of pointless when they really think about it. Like, I always think of moments like this. You think of Thumper from Bambi. It's just like, if you can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all, unless that's your. I mean, I'd add unless that's part of your job. Which, I mean, he goes on to. I'll actually let him continue on with this. I'm sorry, I should not have interrupted like that.
I don't know. I don't care. To be honest, I just genuinely don't care. Listen, the guy wants to be a director in Hollywood. He's not going to step on someone else's shoes and shit on a movie. He's going to talk about movies that he likes, and that is it. So, I mean, if you know what you're getting when you click on the video, then I don't know how you could be shocked or surprised by the end of it when you didn't hear criticism about the film. And I don't know if he calls himself a film critic anymore. I think he'd rather call himself a director. And I think in Hollywood, it's very hard to be a film critic and also get gigs.
Yeah, kind of like what I was saying before. You can't have your cake and eat it too. I mean, you got to pick one or the other. And I know that there are people out there that do reviews and are filmmakers, like Sean C. Phillips. He does still does the Blu-ray shopping videos. He does still do movie reviews, and he also makes movies that eventually make their way to places like Walmart. They do get releases out there. There's a way to do it, but I don't know. Like, it's a weird thing with how Chris Stuckmann handled this. And me personally, I think he makes a point by making the video, but at the same time, it's also kind of pointless when you sell it as a movie review. You have people that want to see your review for this movie, and you don't give them what you want. But then again, he makes the point that says that you can go to other places and do it too. Go see how bad this movie is, because really everyone can pretty much say everything that's wrong with this movie, and we'd all be on the same page with it. But I think what's funny is that the controversy is that he got so much backlash for this that even somebody like Dean Cain, who hasn't done anything of relevancy since Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman, actually reacted to his to this controversy. Like, what does Dean Cain have to do with have to do with Madame Web? Like, why is he so important? Why does he want to talk about this in particular? Like, what is he supposed to gain from this? Like, do I really want to trust Dean Cain on what he has to say about a movie reviewer because he wouldn't review a movie the right way? I don't think so. But it kind of leads into another thing that I thought about here. There's a lot of talk right now. Is film criticism dying? Is this form that we're so used to, is it dying because everyone's getting too sensitive? And if you don't deliver what you're promised, they attack you in many different ways. And personally, I don't think that's the case here. I still pretty much stand by much of film criticism. Like, Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert were the best to do this job, but even they can be wrong on multiple occasions. And I wouldn't have been surprised that if Gene Siskel was still alive and Roger Ebert was still alive, they'd probably look back on the movies they panned back in the day and probably would have given them new life to them, and maybe pan the movies that they did get praised to. Because really, but the problem, I think, is just the public in general. They expect you to do so much more when it comes to trashing a movie. I'll give you an example. Like, as we started the year off, the best thing what film critics usually like to do, put out their best and worst movies list, and that's usually what I like to do as well. There were people online literally saying that we need to stop doing the best and worst movies list. People should just love movies for what they are. But you should love movies for that, but here's my thing with that. My problem with that idea is that abandoning stuff like the best and worst movies list is basically saying that every movie should be loved and every movie should be liked, and you shouldn't say anything about them. You always have to find one great thing to praise about these movies, which, if you're a film critic, that's your job altogether. You have to find ways you have to find something in these movies that you actually like before you could trash them. And there are things in the movies that I talked about that I hated that are very much things that I talk about, that I like. But when a movie is mostly bad because of those things, like Argyle is a bad movie because it's a badly written story. Madame Web is a bad movie because nearly everything about it, from the way it was created, from the way it's presented, and the way that everybody's trying to hide it, trying to pretend like it's a good movie, is bad. The Flash was a bad movie because of the way that Warner Brothers tried to pull a con on everybody, and it didn't work. It backfired horrendously. Like, I'm sorry, but if you want me to stop doing those things because you want me to heap praise on terrible movies like The Flash or 80 for Brady or Fast X, that's not going to happen, man. I'm not changing who I am on that front there. So, me personally, I'm not changing the way I do film criticism. I got a lot of inspiration from, Siskel and Ebert, from like modern day film critics like the guys from Spill, Chris Stuckmann, John Flickster, Doug Walker, those guys, Jeremy Johns. So yeah, I'm not changing the way I do my film criticism, even if the world changes too. I basically decided after last year, it's just kind of like, you know what? I'm not going to let anyone tell me how to do the job that I've been doing for years now. I'm going to say what I want to say about movies. If they're bad, I'm going to say they're bad. If they're good, I'm going to say they're good. I'm going to do what I've been told, what I've been taught through the people that I've been influenced by, and I'm going to do what I do best, and do what I've been doing for the last 20 years. And personally, that's the way I've been going with it ever since last summer. It's just like, I'm not going to. You think I'm going to give heap? You think I'm going to be one of those people that's just like, the Flash was supposed to have bad CGI. It's supposed to be that bad. It's just like, no, I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I just wanted to give my thoughts on the Chris Stuckmann controversy there, which isn't really a controversy. It's like, just, there are so many other important things going on in the world right now that this should not be a controversy to anybody. Like, I don't think he should have made the video. I think if he wanted to make the video, he shouldn't have sold it as a Madame Web review. He should have just said, hey, this is a video talking about the stuff behind the scenes of Madame Web, not the movie itself. And, like, plain and simple, just I think it was just a bad move on his part. I have no ill will towards Chris Stuckmann whatsoever. He's gonna surpass this. He's gonna move. He's gonna do what he does best. It's not like he had It's not like he did a controversial thing, like saying a racial slur or something like that, or saying something that could get him canceled online, or canceled in quotes. But yeah, I'm not really gonna sugarcoat. I'm not really gonna drop down on him for that. I mean, he's entitled to do whatever he wants. I'm entitled to do whatever I want to. But I'm just saying, me personally, I thought it was a bad move on the video. I think he makes a good point, but he had to do it in a way that the video didn't seem pointless when you're trying to sell it as a movie review. I think that was the biggest problem with that video in particular. But I digress. Speaking of reviewing things that should be said as not good, let's talk about the review I have here for Netflix's newest show, Avatar: The Last Airbender. So this past Friday, Netflix, Thursday I should say, it actually came out on Thursday the 22nd, Netflix dropped the live-action series adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is the second time they've tried to adapt Avatar to live-action form. Of course, the first time was the infamous M. Night Shyamalan movie. And if you don't know the story of Avatar, this is a show that takes place in a war-torn world inspired by various Asian and indigenous cultures where certain people can bend one of the four classical elements: water, fire, earth, and air. Aang the Avatar and the last living airbender is the bridge between the mortal and spirit worlds, and the only one capable of bending all four of the elements instead of just one. The Avatar maintains the balance of the world and nature to bring peace, and Aang is now faced with the responsibility of ending the ambitions of the militaristic Fire Nation to conquer the world. With his new companions, Katara and Sokka, Aang sets out to master the four elements while pursued by Zuko, the exiled crown prince of the Fire Nation, who seeks to regain his honor by capturing him. And of course, this is based off the Nickelodeon show of the same name, which I don't really talk about it all that much, but it really is one of my favorite shows of all time. It's one of those shows that came out of nowhere. I didn't really know too much. I knew about it, but I never really watched it when it was originally airing. It took the Avatar movie, the 2010 film, and how bad it was to make me really appreciate how much I like that show more, because the show clearly did more storytelling, it did more world building, it did more character-wise, created a lot of unique and exciting elements to it than anything that the movie did. And it's just another one of those examples of why animation is kicking the ever-loving crap out of live action. And people don't want to admit that, sadly. Which brings us to this show right here, which started off with some high ambitions because you had the original creators, Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko. I think I'm pronounced that right, initially announced as the executive producers and showrunners. However, 2 years later, they left the show due to creative differences and essentially went on to create their own studio, for their own Avatar studio, which they're going to produce new animated films with the characters from Avatar in it. But that should have been the red flag right there, that something was not right here. Something was off here. But, I mean, we still went along with it because, you know, it had to be better than The Last Airbender. It can't be worse than the M. Night Shyamalan movie. The trailers for it were looking pretty good. I mean, the trailers looked really solid. They were bright and colorful. They looked like they had everybody representing the proper nationality they were going to, and they had the designs that look exactly like the show. And Netflix had just done One Piece, which has been highly praised as one of the best shows they've had in a while. And so we all went in there. We were watching it, ready to see what they had for us. And I couldn't believe it, but by the time I was done watching it, I had to give the M. Night Shyamalan Last Airbender movie more credit because they were at least trying a little bit more than this was. Not to say that the Shyamalan movie was good by any means, but this is still better than that. But still, I came out of this really underwhelmed, and I came out of it underwhelmed because mostly because of a couple things. One, it's toned down. I mean, the Avatar animated series had a nice balance of comedy and drama to it, but this is going more towards dramatic elements. There's little comedy in this, and it really suffers because of that. I think that's the biggest problem with The Last Airbender, too, is that it took itself way too seriously. I mean, way too seriously. And, like, it just really was an underwhelming. Like, I was really underwhelmed coming out of this, really, because of the fact that they toned it down a lot. Again, it's not as bad as Last Airbender, but it's not any better than what they were trying to do there. I mean, it really is one of those ones where it's just one of these shows. It's just like, so much of this should be so much better than it actually is, and then it really is not. I mean, and on top of that, the writing overall, I don't know what was going on with the writing in this, because they changed things around here, but they do it, and it kind of ruins what the original intention of the show doing it was supposed to be about. I think Doug Walker kind of summed it up best with the first moments of the episode. The first moments of the episode, basically, like the first episode, it starts off with Aang's backstory, and if you've ever seen the TV show, the way they actually talk about Aang's backstory while also talking about the backstory of Zuko is so well done. It's one of the best. It's arguably considered to be one of the show's best episodes. But the way it's handled here, it just feels so out of place. And that's what happens a lot with the show. A lot of characters, a lot of things that they built up so nicely in the animated series. The way they decide to move stuff around in this show really does not make a whole lot of sense whatsoever. And it really suffers because of that. And there are times in the show when the writing is so badly written and so poorly put together, you would almost swear that this was written by AI or ChatGPT. In fact, this is the second thing that we've seen in the last week that felt like something that was written by AI or ChatGPT. The other one being Madame Web, which we've talked more than enough about that in this particular show. But, I don't know. To me, I mean, I don't want to say that the M. Night Shyamalan movie was better, but there were times when I really thought, you're making Shyamalan look better by comparison. I mean, I can't say that this is better than this is worse than the M. Night Shyamalan show, because the M. Night Shyamalan movie in particular was just a mess, a total abomination on so many different levels. But in this case here, it goes back to what I've been saying before about animation and live action and why they're so different. They are so radically different the way they're represented. Animation is kicking the ever-loving crap out of live action right now, and it's not even close. Disney, I think, has done a very good job of showing that. DreamWorks did that for a number of years. You know, a lot of these different studios, Netflix themselves, have put movies out there that are much better than some of the live-action movies we've gotten. I mean, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was an achievement. What they've done, what Sony has done with those movies in particular in the animation department, not with the Spider-Verse movies. Live action movies wish they could do something like that. Those movies are so good, they're forcing Sony's live action Spider-Man movies to copy that formula. And they just can't do it. Like, the MCU has been struggling for the most part to stick to that formula, to bring that formula into their shows because of how well Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse have done it. I mean, that just goes to show you what animation is capable of doing, and why live action is just so hard to do this, especially with a show like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Honestly, when they first announced this show, I thought there was some potential there, but as soon as the creators left, it's just like, that should have been the warning sign that we can't. Yeah, this isn't going to end very well. This is something that doesn't need to be in live action. It really does not. I think they've tried to make a live action movie. It didn't work. They tried to make a TV series. It hasn't worked, even though they've gotten the look down. I just don't think it was a good idea to try to do this without the people behind the scenes. And we don't know what the new things that they're going to do over at the Avatar Studios with these new movies that they've got coming up, but they've got to be better than anything that this. They've got to be so much better than anything that this live action show and the Last Airbender movie have had to work with here. I feel like that's just something like we don't need everything to be a live action format. Like animation works so well for so many different things. It's not just for kids, it's for everybody. I can't believe we still have to say this, but unfortunately we have to. But I mean, Last Airbender really is one of the big misfires of the year. This is one that's surely going to be very much in there when we get to the worst of the year list, just for how underwhelming it is, because so much potential was there from the way the show looked, from the way that it looked like they were going in the right direction, and then we get the thing and it just falls apart like that. I mean, this is definitely a major disappointment on so many different levels. Easily one of the biggest disappointments of the year, easily one of the worst shows of the year, easily, hands down. And despite those little things about it that make it, is the look of it, the visuals of it, the storytelling, the way they decided to change characters around, and the lack of both a mix of comedy and drama really hurts this show in the long run. It's a disappointment too. It's a very massive disappointment, considering everything that was building up to this, and then this was the end result of it. But so yeah, I don't recommend this show. If it gets another season, I might go back in and try and see I might go back in. Maybe they'll get it right if they get a second season, but I sincerely doubt it, considering what I just saw from this. So anyway, that is my thoughts on Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender. Let's go ahead and wrap the show up by taking a look at some recommendations for the week. And this week, of course, like I've been saying before, it looks like they're going to start putting out new releases every 2 weeks, the bigger new releases, because this week we've got a plethora of new releases, new theatrical releases that were in theaters a couple months ago and now are making their way to Blu-ray. Migration, we talked about before, is coming out on Blu-ray this week. That's one I'm definitely going to be looking forward to picking up. Next Goal Wins, Taika Waititi's latest film, which I actually liked. I know a lot of people didn't get to see it, didn't like it as much as I did, but I thought that was a good movie. That's one I'm definitely looking forward to picking up. Comes out on Blu-ray this week. Wonka comes out on Blu-ray this week, which I was not the biggest fan of. I know a lot of people like that one, but yeah, I was not a big fan of that one. But looking at some of the other releases we have here, there's a really cool-looking Dragonheart Steelbook coming out from Shout Factory, I believe. Which Dragonheart's a great movie with Sean Connery as the dragon, Kevin Costner is the guy who's supposed to take him in. Dennis Quaid's the one who is the one. I'm thinking of no, it's not Kevin Costner. This is it's the power of doing this on the cusp. Like I'm trying to, it's like I'm gonna get stuff wrong, and I got that one wrong big time. It's Dennis Quaid as the one who's supposed to come in and take the dragon. The dragon's voiced by Sean Connery. And it was a good movie. I really liked that one a lot. I got the Blu-ray for it not too long ago when it came out on 4K. And if I can find the Shout Factory Steelbook somewhere, I'll definitely pick it up. Let's see. Anything else in particular? I don't see any other big new releases this week in terms of physical media. Let me go ahead and take a look and see if there's anything on streaming worth talking about. There are a couple of new shows on television I'm looking forward to checking out. One of them is Shogun, which is based off of the 1975 novel by James Clavell. Looks very good. Like from a visual standpoint, it looks incredible. They've had promos for it playing all over FX and FXX, and they had one during the Super Bowl. The reviews for it have been very good. It's got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, universal acclaim. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this one pay off to see this one on TV. It starts off with a 2-episode premiere Tuesday, so I'm definitely looking forward to checking that one out. And then there's one other thing that I saw is coming out on a Wednesday, the 28th, and that is on Disney Plus, the all-new animated miniseries by Disney Animation Studios, Iwaju. And the story of this is that it's set in the futuristic Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria, and the series will explore deep themes of class, innocence, and challenging the status quo. The trailer for this came out a while ago, and I gotta say, man, I was really impressed by what I saw here, and I'm really excited to see what this does. This is done by Walt Disney Animation Studios, as well as the company is the British-based company Kugali Media. And after the years that Disney has had, this could get them back on the right track. After Wish didn't do well, or Strange World didn't do so well, this thing could be the thing that gets them back on the right track here. And the other word of mouth on this is very good. And the trailer, like I said, looks incredible. The animation looks really good. I'm definitely looking forward to checking this one out. It starts streaming on Wednesday, February 28th on Disney+. But other than that, that's going to wrap it up. That's all the recommendations I have, and that's going to wrap up this episode of the Reviewing Network Live for this week. So thank you so much for watching and listening. And if you want to see more videos like this, hit the like and subscribe button. Check out some of the other videos we've done. And let me know your thoughts down below on any of the topics that we talked about. I think there is a lot here to take in. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next week for another episode. So thank you for watching. I'll see you next time, and until then, we are out.